The latest inflation numbers show that nationwide rents have cooled from historic highs, but it's not reaching every rental market or every renter. Austin, Texas is one of the places where rents are showing a downward trend, but lower income families there say their rents are often staying the same or even going up. Blair Waltman-Alexin of Austin PBS tells us who's getting a deal in the Texas capital and who's not.
Está bien.
Marilu Jaimes had achieved that rare dream in Austin, finding an apartment that was close to everything she needed.
Estaba cerca de la biblioteca, cerca de...
It was close to the library, close to the grocery store, close to my daughter's school, also from work. It was the best. I was close to everything. Now I feel like I'm going to use a lot of gas.
She's worried about burning gas because soon she will be moving about 45 minutes outside of town. She's leaving because her rent's gone up and she can't afford to stay.
Antes pagaba...
I used to pay $1,040, and suddenly that was raised to $1,530. It doesn't seem fair to me that after so many years, they simply raised the rent so much that we have no other option but to leave this place.
But reports show that rents are going down in Austin. A study by Rent.com showed rents dipping more than 12% year over year.
Yeah, so it's not all bad.
Jake Wegman is an associate professor in the Community Regional Planning program at the University of Texas.
We were flooded with headlines about how all of America was moving to Austin, and developers responded to that.
So Austin's population increased, especially during the pandemic, about 6% between 2020 and 2022. And demand for housing increased as well. This drew a lot of developers to build apartments, and maybe, as it turned out, too many apartments. One report showed that as of last fall, almost 20,000 more multifamily units were delivered than released. And it's got some landlords offering deals to bring in tenants.
Maybe 2 years ago, they'd feel like they were jostling for an apartment, and now the landlord is saying, hey, like if you sign this 12-month lease, then I'll give you a month or more of free rent.
So I would say the biggest thing has been rent increases, and we're seeing that throughout Austin in a lot of low-income housing properties specifically.
Jasmine Rivera is an outreach specialist with BASTA, a group that works with low-income renters like Jaimes. She says they see residents struggling with a very tight housing market.
We do have a lot of folks that are saying there's no housing I can find that's within my range that I can afford right now, and so they're definitely moving to the outskirts of Austin, which is really, really hard.
That's the challenge Jaimes found herself in.
Well, I thought about moving, and that's what I'm going to do because I have no other option. It's too much money. I can't pay it because I can't pay so much rent alone.
So if there are all of these new apartments, why can't lower-income families find a place to stay?
Most of our newer housing remains unaffordable if it's market rate. Of course, if we created...
Aves Ashar is with Housing Works Austin, and he says part of the problem with a lot of these new buildings, they're aimed at high-income earners. Nationwide, 89% of new apartments built in the last couple of years were considered high-end. They're also the ones getting deals on rent. One report showed that in Texas cities, luxury apartments saw bigger price drops than middle-tier rentals.
What we're seeing in terms of construction of housing is we're seeing, of course, some more higher-end apartments being built. At the same time, this gap between housing costs and the gap between income has been growing for over a decade in Austin and other parts of the nation.
This earning gap didn't just increase the going rate for housing in Austin. It also skewed a number that has a big impact on low-income housing, the median family income, or MFI, sometimes referred to as the AMI, or average median income. Noelia Mann, interim director of the eviction mitigation team at BASTA, explains.
So if you're having an influx of high-income earners, right, that's going to tip the scale. But for the most part, newer affordable housing programs are actually tied to the AMI. The AMI goes up, but like a working class family's income is not increasing in the same way. So the affordability, I would say, is actually going the opposite way. Like it's getting less affordable for regular working class people in Austin.
So when the MFI increases, the amount landlords can charge for affordable housing also increases. But experts say wages for lower-income workers aren't keeping up. And rents are still above pre-pandemic levels, even with the price drops. Azhar says high housing costs can eat into other parts of a family's budget.
Once folks spend more than 30% of their income on housing and utility-related costs, that means they're cutting funding from somewhere else, whether that's childcare or healthcare or other basic provisions of life. Even though I know we're hearing a lot about how rents have, comparatively gone down to their peak during the pandemic, we're still seeing that they're high enough for a lot of households to be struggling.
Jake Wegman says there is a silver lining here for affordable housing advocates.
This is a great time for the public sector and for nonprofits to scoop up land and to scoop up projects at a lower rate. Maybe they are now able to acquire more projects during a downturn like this than they had been planning on.
The city is still pursuing its housing goals. Voters approved $300 million in 2020 for anti-displacement efforts as part of the new Project Connect transit plan. But those plans will take time to come together. For Jaime's and others who can't afford their rent now, once she puts in her notice, she says she has about 60 days.
We found a place to live together, so there's no other option.
For PBS News Weekend, I'm Blair Waltman-Alexin in Austin.